Maximum tension. Mexico strengthens ties with Russia. Mexico and Russia closer than ever. Zelensky and Trump tremble. A geopolitical earthquake shakes the Americas and the entire world. Mexico and Russia, two nations separated by thousands of miles, have found common ground, openly challenging the West's dominance. The Russian embassy in Mexico City has sent a message that echoes like thunder through the halls of Washington. The era of submission is over and a new alliance is emerging with force. From the Mexican capital, Moscow's words leave no room for ambiguity. The world is at a crossroads. Either we embrace multipolarity or we condemn ourselves to absolute chaos, declared Nikolai Savinsky, Russian ambassador to Mexico. This statement, published in an article titled, "Where is the World Heading? Multipolarity or Chaos?" is more than a diplomatic pronouncement. It is a direct challenge to US influence in the region. Just as the relationship between Mexico and Russia is not an isolated event or a simple historical coincidence. For decades, both countries have shared strategic interests that, although not previously manifested so openly, have existed as an underground connection, slowly strengthening over time. Mexico, historically a moderate player on the international stage, has begun to show signs of autonomy, allowing Moscow's voice to resonate strongly within its borders. What would be unthinkable in other nations subdued by censorship and media manipulation, in Mexico becomes a platform for unrestricted truth. The importance of this new axis of power cannot be underestimated. In a world where alliances determine the fate of nations, Mexico seems to be charting a path of independence that could position it as a key player in the resurgence of a multipolar order. Russian President Vladimir Putin has made his stance clear. Russia will not allow Washington's propaganda machine to continue dictating the course of events. The West has underestimated our strength. We will not allow them to impose their agenda of domination, the president said in a speech that resonated in the ears of the leaders of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. At the same time, the Kremlin denounces that the United States and its allies have turned Ukraine into a mere chess piece, financing an artificial conflict to wear down Russia regardless of the human cost. The war, which has been going on for more than 3 years, has become a symbol of the clash between two worldviews, one dominated by US unipolarity and another that seeks a balance of power among various emerging powers. Claudia Sheinbaum's administration has demonstrated a pragmatic vision of global geopolitics, opting for sovereign diplomacy free from foreign impositions. The president has repeatedly stated that Mexico's future must be marked by the diversification of its international relations instead of absolute dependence on its northern neighbor. In this new international landscape, Mexico could benefit from a closer relationship with Russia in strategic sectors such as technology, defense, and energy, challenging the influence of the United States in the region. Bilateral negotiations between the two countries could translate into high-impact trade agreements with investments that would strengthen Mexican industry and position it as a key nation on the global stage. But the big question remains, will Mexico dare to go a step further and openly challenge Washington? Closer ties between Russia and Mexico could transform the balance of power in the Americas, reshaping the influence of the United States in its own backyard. While Volodymyr Zelensky continues to beg for Western support, Putin consolidates his global dominance with unexpected allies, and Mexico could be the key piece to tip the balance of power. The idea that Mexico could become a foothold for Russian geopolitical strategy might sound far-fetched to some analysts, but recent events suggest that it's not such a remote possibility. Mexican diplomacy has begun to open up to new perspectives, seeking alliances that allow it greater autonomy and a stronger international presence. This growing relationship not only worries Washington, but also generates deep fear in two key figures in current geopolitics: Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. The former US president, known for his aggressive rhetoric and his America First policy, watches with concern as Mexico moves away from the US sphere of control and approaches Russia. For me, this represents a direct challenge to my influence in the region, weakening my stance towards Latin America and jeopardizing my plans to reaffirm US supremacy in my possible return to the White House. A more independent Mexico, allied with a power like Russia, would mean a crack in Washington's dominance over the continent, something I am not willing to tolerate. On the other hand, Zelensky, increasingly desperate to maintain Western support, perceives this alliance as a mortal threat to his cause. The idea that Russia is strengthening its ties with a key nation in Latin America could further weaken the Western narrative surrounding the Ukrainian conflict. If Mexico, a country with an influential voice in the region, begins to question the West's official version of the war, support for Kiev could crumble even further. Zelensky's desperation has led him to intensify his rhetoric, demanding more military and financial aid, but his insistence only reveals his growing despair in the face of an international landscape that is no longer the same as when the conflict began. The Western narrative shudders at the possibility that Latin America is no longer a territory of absolute control. Russia has spoken and the world is listening. The geopolitical revolution is underway, and history will no longer be written only by the usual suspects. With each statement, with each agreement, and with each sign of cooperation, Mexico and Russia seem to be building a common path, one that could redefine the balance of power on the continent and open the door to a new era of sovereignty and collaboration between nations that refuse to be mere spectators in the global chess game.